Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Luke Corey and I'm a registered dietitian and sports nutritionist. And the topic for today is the power of nutrition. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at how you can use nutrition to fuel your body, to boost your health, and to power performance. So if you're tuning in and you have a question, you can reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag UCLA MD chat, or you can comment on our Facebook page, and we'll be answering those questions at the end of today's webinar. All right, so just a brief outline of what we're going to discuss today. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at nutrition and give it a new definition, something that is a little more up to date. And then we're going to follow it up with talking about the impacts that nutrition has on your day-to-day performance. We're going to look at the difference between poor nutrition and optimal nutrition. And that will lead into what I call the 5 basics of optimal nutrition. And then finally, we're going to finish off by putting everything into practice so you have a good understanding of what you need to do in order to truly maximize from this information you're going to receive today. Just a brief introduction. As I mentioned, I am a registered dietitian and sports nutritionist. I work out of the UCLA Health Sports Performance Center. That's located at the UCLA Health Training Center in El Segundo, which is the home of the LA Lakers. At our facility, we provide performance training and fitness classes for youth, high school, and elite athletes, as well as just recreational adults who are looking to get back into shape. From my end of things, I provide the nutrition support for all of those members, and that comes in the form of evaluations and assessments, body composition measurements, and the creation of nutrition action plans that they can take and start to implement into their day-to-day routine. So the first thing I want to discuss is redefining what nutrition is. So if you take a look in any dictionary, a typical nutrition definition is something like this. It says it's the process of obtaining food, the food necessary for health and growth, which is great. Essentially what they're saying is you're using nutrition to keep you alive and functioning. I'm sure that's what we all want. But when we're talking about optimal health and optimal nutrition, I think we need to expand on this definition. So this is how we define optimal nutrition. We say that it's eating the right amount of nutrients on a proper schedule to achieve the best performance and longest possible lifetime in good health. So essentially what that means is that we're using nutrition to not only maximize health and happiness and well-being, but if you're athletic, to improve your athletic performance as well. And nutrition can have a profound impact not only on your daily health, but if you're an athlete, on your athletic performance as well. So taking a look here, just from a day-to-day perspective, what we can see is that good optimal nutrition habits can reduce your risk of developing diseases and disorders like cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. It can also make it easier to lose fat mass and to gain muscle mass, which is what is optimal for good health. Tissue quality, so things like nails, skin, hair, and teeth. Good nutrition supports those particular tissues. Joint health is a big one, especially as we get older. Good optimal nutrition can reduce your risk of developing arthritis and other degenerative joint disorders. And lastly, if you're an adolescent and you're in your growth period, good nutrition can support that growth and development so that you can reach your full potential. So the day-to-day impacts of optimal nutrition are profound. Then from a performance standpoint, so this can be athletic performance or this can just be day-to-day performance, even work performance. Optimal nutrition can support cognitive function. So things like focus and concentration and quick decision-making skills, those can all be improved and enhanced by good nutrition. Your ability to exercise, so not only exercise longer and harder, but to exercise at a higher intensity, that's all improved by simply incorporating good nutrition practices into your routine. Things like energy and endurance, again, from an athletic standpoint is very important, but just the energy to get through a typical day is improved by good nutrition. Strength and power, from a performance standpoint is improved. Your risk of injury decreases. So if you're injury prone, you may want to look at the quality of your nutrition. And good nutrition habits can reduce that risk of injury and also help you recover from injury if you've suffered one in the past. And then lastly, a lot of people suffer with poor sleep. And a lot of times it is nutrition related. So the quality of sleep can be improved by just making some modifications to your eating habits. So what we want to take a look at now is looking at the difference between poor nutrition and a poor diet and what we consider kind of the optimal nutrition habits. So if we look at those people who typically follow a poor diet, what we see is that they're consuming low nutrient food. So there's really no quality to the foods that they're consuming. And then they're also consuming those foods in large portions. We tend to see that these people have irregular eating patterns. So they're skipping meals or they're skipping snacks, or every day looks a little bit different in terms of the schedule of their meals and snacks. And then lastly, what we see is that these people are typically dehydrated, or they're consuming unhealthy fluid sources, so things like sodas and energy drinks and those sorts of things. So if you're following a diet like this, typically your calorie consumption is higher than it should be, and that can lead to a lot of issues like weight gain and a lot of those disorders and diseases that we talked about in the previous slide. So ideally, we want people to gravitate more towards what we consider the optimal nutrition habits. This is eating nutrient-rich foods, so basically getting the best quality in every bite that you take. Consuming those foods in the appropriate portion sizes, eating at regular times, and we'll get into this in more detail later on, and then being well hydrated and consuming healthy fluid sources. So ultimately, the goal today is to help, whether it's you or people you know, gravitate from sort of this poor diet into something that's a little bit more higher quality and will help you reach whatever goals that you have in mind. So that leads us in to what I call the 5 basics of optimal nutrition. So these are the 5 things that you can implement into your day-to-day routine that's going to help you reach your goal, that's going to help improve your health and boost your performance. Those 5 things we're going to discuss are eating schedule, the key nutrients that you want to be focusing on when you're building your meals out, the types of foods that you should be selecting in order to get those key nutrients. We're going to look at portion sizes and then finish off with talking about how to stay well hydrated throughout your day. So let's start with eating schedule. So there's a few different routines that people typically follow as part of their eating schedule. Some of those common routines include one that is considered kind of the most common, which is eating every 2 to 3 hours. So a typical day for somebody like this would be they have breakfast in the morning, they follow that up with a snack mid-morning, then they're having lunch, then they're having another snack in the evening, and maybe finishing off their day with dinner. That's a very common practice for most people, and it's a very healthy practice as well. But there's other people who might follow what we call the 3 square meals routine, where they really thrive off of just eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're not really big snack eaters. And that's perfectly fine as well. And then lastly, there's people who skip meals, or they put themselves into a state of intentional fasting. So what that looks like is perhaps on purpose, they're skipping breakfast every morning. And then their first meal is lunch, and then they're having snack, and then they're having dinner. And that's a perfectly healthy routine as well, right? One thing to consider though is if you do go into a fasting routine, it's not really recommended for those who are pregnant, in their growth periods, having impaired glucose regulation, so if they have issues with diabetes or prediabetes, or if they're athletic and they want to gain muscle. It's just not a suitable eating schedule for those types of people. But what the research shows is it's not so much the schedule that you follow, it's the consistency that you can maintain, right? So whether you prefer to eat, every couple of hours, or if you like 3 square meals, or if you like to follow a fasting protocol, as long as you can stick with that day to day and that every day looks the same, that's when your body's going to thrive. So really, picking that routine that you can follow on a day-to-day basis is where you're going to get the most benefit from. And then what we want to figure out and determine are the key nutrients that we want to include within those meals. So there's 4 key nutrients that we want to ensure are a part of our entire day and a part of every meal and snack. The first one, and probably the most important one, is protein. Right? So protein are the building blocks of our bodies. They're the building blocks of muscle, bone, tissues, organs, even our brains are all built using protein. And our bodies regenerate and replace these proteins on a daily basis. So we want to make sure that our diet is rich in lean, high-quality proteins in order to support this tissue quality while also keeping the body healthy and strong. And for those who are in their growth phase, making sure that they have the building blocks to grow to their full potential. So every time we make a meal, there always should be a source of protein with that meal, whether it's animal-based or plant-based. And we'll get into those foods in a second here. But the second key nutrient that we want to include in our daily diets are carbohydrates. Now, carbs have kind of developed a bad reputation over the last few years. A lot of people are associating carbs with fat gain, and unfortunately there's not a lot of research to actually back that up. Okay. So carbohydrates are a beneficial part of our diets. We just want to make sure we're consuming in the right portions, which we're going to be talking about in a few slides from now. What we need to know though is that carbs are the main source of fuel for our bodies and for our brains. So we want to make sure that we are including carbs as part of our meals and snacks. If you're active, carbs are your main source of energy during exercise. And then a lot of foods that provide carbohydrates also provide those soluble and insoluble fibers that support gut health and cardiovascular health as well. Right? So we want to make sure that we do include carbohydrates within our diets. Keep in mind though that the amount that we consume can be adjusted based off the goals that we have. So typically what we see is for people who do want to lose a little bit of weight, we'll cut back on their carb intakes. But if you're athletic and you train at a high level, we want to make sure that your carb intake is sufficient enough to support all of those activities. So proteins are a big part of our diet, carbs are a big part of our diet. We also want to make sure that we are including fat in our diet as well. So again, fat had that bad reputation a few years ago as well. Everything we ate was low fat or no fat. But what we found in the research is that we actually need fat in our diets, right? But we need the right types of fat. The reason why is that healthy fats support joint health, right? A lot of these fats have an anti-inflammatory property to them. So if we're talking about reducing our risk of arthritis or other chronic joint issues, we may want to look at incorporating some more healthy fats into our diet. Those healthy fats also support cognitive function as well. So making sure that we are keeping our brain healthy using these healthy fats. And then lastly, there's a lot of essential vitamins that can only be absorbed by incorporating some of these fats in our diets. So things like vitamin A, D, E, and K, which are all vital to just the daily functioning of our bodies. We want to make sure that our body is able to absorb these, and the only way to do that is to ensure that we have enough of those healthy fats in our diets. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we are getting enough vitamins and minerals, and we're consuming the full spectrum of vitamins and minerals with the foods that we eat. Vitamins and minerals are like the key in the ignition of our car. It's what keeps our body functioning day to day, right? It essentially keeps you alive, right? Vitamins and minerals also keep your immune system strong and healthy and protect your body from disease. So overall, when we're building out our meals, we want to make sure that we include all 4 of those key nutrients throughout our meals, throughout our snacks, so by the end of the day, our body gets everything it needs to support health, performance, and just day-to-day functioning. So we've established our eating schedule. That's the first thing we talked about. We've identified those key nutrients that we want to include in our meals and snacks. Now it's time to focus on those foods that are going to provide us with those key nutrients. So this is just a quick snapshot of the thousands of different types of foods that can provide those key nutrients that we're looking for. So for example, we talked about protein being a vital nutrient in terms of maintaining good lean tissue and strong bones and so on. Well, we can get protein from a number of sources. Not only lean meats, things like fish and seafood, and chicken and beef and those sorts of things. We can also get it from different dairy products as well, right? Milk, cheese, Greek yogurt, those all are very good sources of protein. We have to keep in mind though that we also want to get some of those plant-based proteins in our diet as well. So things like beans and lentils, tofu, tempeh, and different nuts and seeds provide us with those essential proteins that our body requires. Right? So making sure that we get a variety of those foods as part of our daily diet to make sure that our body gets all the different proteins that it requires. When it comes to carbohydrates, there's really two categories. The first one are grain products. So these are kind of the more nutrient-dense carb sources. Things like oats, wheat bread, wheat pasta, brown rice, quinoa, barley, couscous. Those sorts of foods provide us with a lot of those complex carbohydrates that give us the fuel source to keep our bodies functioning throughout the day. But then we also want to make sure that we're getting fruits and vegetables in our diet. They provide carbohydrates as well. Things like apples and different types of berries and bananas, and then vegetables like sweet potatoes, squash, carrots, those sorts of things. Those are all carb-rich, nutrient-dense options that we want to include in our diets as well. And then lastly, those healthy fats that we talked about, those come from things like nuts and seeds and different oils. Things like almonds and flaxseed and chia seeds. Olive oil is a great source of those healthy fats. Even some foods like salmon, which is also a protein source, provides those healthy fats as well. So getting those foods as part of our diet is essential to making sure that we get those healthy fats our body requires. So if we're getting a variety of protein, if we're getting a variety of carbohydrates, whether it's through grains or fruits and vegetables, and if we get a variety of those fat sources, that's going to provide us with all of those vitamins and minerals that we talked about as that fourth key nutrient. So the key here is making sure we get variety throughout our diets. People typically tend to eat a lot of the same things every day. So we want to expand that palate a little bit. We want to start to really explore some of these different foods that we might not consume on a daily basis. And ultimately, when you're building out a meal, getting something from each one of these categories ensures that by the end of the day, you're hitting all your key nutrient targets. So visually what that looks like is something like this. What we see here is we see a lot of color, a lot of variety, just different foods that we can be including in our diet on a daily basis. So our lean proteins, some of our whole grains, fruits and vegetables, even dairy products are healthy options as well. So ultimately, what you need to start thinking about is ways that you can upgrade your current meals to something that's a little bit more balanced and something that includes all four of those key nutrients that we talk about. So here's an example here, right? A lot of people for dinner or for lunch have something like this. Maybe it's some chicken strips with some French fries, right? Yes, this meal here provides protein and carbohydrates, but unfortunately, because it's typically deep fried, you're going to get unhealthy fats as part of that meal, right? And then you're missing out on a lot of key vitamins and minerals that your body requires, right? Instead, what we want to try to do is we want to try to upgrade from that meal and get something that includes all four of those key nutrients that we talked about. So something like this, we've got chicken, we've got rice, we've got vegetables, fruit, even a couple pieces of cheese. What that's going to do is that's going to give us those lean proteins that our body requires, good sources of carbohydrate in the rice, in the fruits, the vegetables, healthy fat, which could be a dressing on the vegetables, and the key vitamins and minerals from just that variety of food that again supports day-to-day functioning. So if you're kind of following along, what we've done so far again is develop that eating schedule. We've identified the key nutrients that we want to include: proteins, carbs, healthy fats, vitamins and minerals. We've identified the foods that provide those nutrients. Now what we want to do is we want to focus on consuming those foods in the right portions. So portion sizes have increased over the last few decades, and I think we see a correlation with the increase in rates of obesity and being overweight. And a lot of that is attributed to portion sizes, kind of going out of control a little bit. So what we want to do is we want to give you some perspective on the sizes of the portions of food that you're consuming on a daily basis. And I'll also give you some perspective on, how many portions you should be consuming over the course of a day. So the easiest way to understand portion size is to use your hand. So for example, if you have a protein source, one serving fits in the palm of your hand. So it's about 3 ounces of something like chicken or fish or even like beans or lentils. It's whatever can fit in the palm of your hand. That's one serving. For carbohydrates, it's 1 cupped hand. So it's about a half a cup overall. So that would be grains, things like oats or cereal, something like that, rice. It's whatever you can fit in a cupped hand, that's 1 serving. Those healthy fats that we talked about, it's about a thumb size. So about 1 ounce or a tablespoon, right? So if it's oil, if it's nuts, it's about the size of 1 thumb. And then fruits and vegetables, a fistful would be considered 1 serving. So that's about 1 cup as well, right? So again, if you're preparing your meal, take a look at the portion sizes you're consuming and just make sure they fit with the recommendations here. So to put this in perspective, let's get an understanding of what a typical day looks like for your average person. So the average male consumes around 2,000 calories every day. If we were to break that down into portions, and this is kind of the ideal breakdown, we're talking about 8 servings of protein. So that'd be about 8 of those palmfuls throughout the day of protein. We're looking at 13 servings of carbohydrates. So that's a combination of those grains and fruits and vegetables. Typically, we try to do half or more of those servings as fruits or vegetables. And then lastly, we're talking about 9 servings or 9 thumb sizes of fat as well for that typical male 2,000 calorie diet. Females, typically it's about 1,600 calories a day. So you're looking at about 6 servings or 6 palmfuls of protein, 10 servings of carbohydrates with at least half of those being fruits and vegetables, and then 7 servings of fat or 7 thumbfuls. So if you're looking for a breakdown of how that's distributed throughout the day, if we take a look at that male, 2,000 calories, again, 8 servings of protein, 13 servings of carbs, 9 servings of fat. If we were to break that down with this eating schedule here, it looks something like this. 2 of those palmfuls or 2 of those servings of protein will come at breakfast. Maybe you add 1 serving of grain, 2 servings of fruits and vegetables, and maybe 2 servings of fat. What that could look like in real life would be something like a cup of Greek yogurt, a little sprinkle of granola, maybe you throw in some blueberries, some strawberries, and add some chopped almonds, right? That would hit that full nutrient profile in the right portions. And then you just continue to spread out those servings throughout the day until you get kind of an even distribution between your meals and snacks, and you reach your daily totals, right? So the key thing here is know your numbers and try to reach those numbers on a consistent basis day in and day out. Same thing with our females. Again, some fewer portions overall, but still distributed throughout the day, similar to the male example there. So lastly, what we're going to talk about is hydration and how you ensure that you are well hydrated throughout your day. So the human body is approximately 75% water. So small changes in hydration can really impact the body. And you may have suffered from some of these symptoms of dehydration, things like headaches, constipation, fatigue, joint and muscle pain, reduced athletic performance, impaired cognitive function. If you've ever had any of these symptoms, you may want to take a closer look at your hydration. You might be in a dehydrated state, right? So in order to avoid dehydration and to stay well hydrated, it's good to know how much water we actually need to drink every single day. And an easy way to figure that out is to take your weight in pounds and divide it by 2. That's the number of ounces of calorie-free fluid that you should be consuming every single day. So for example, if you weigh 150 pounds, you need to drink about 75 ounces or about 2.5 liters of water every single day. Right? And I keep mentioning water because that's your best fluid source, but you can get that hydration from things like coffee and tea. Trying to avoid putting too much sugar or cream into those drinks. Unsweetened iced tea, so low sugar, calorie free. Lemon water, so basically water with a slice of lemon in it just to give it some flavoring. Or again, if you don't like the flavor of just plain water, using a flavoring agent can help boost your hydration. So trying to hit that number on a daily basis will ensure that your body is getting all the hydration it needs to function at its best. One way to track hydration is to look at urine color. So we want something typically in this yellow to pale yellow that ensures that you're in a hydrated state. The darker your urine gets, the more dehydrated you are, the more you're going to need to focus on your hydration intake in the future. So again, up to this point, in terms of our 5 basics, we've talked about establishing that eating schedule, identifying those key nutrients that you want to include throughout your day, choosing the right foods that are going to provide you with those key nutrients, eating those foods in the right portions, and then making sure you're well hydrated, right, to complement everything you've been doing up to that point. So now it comes to putting this all into practice. And there's some simple things you can do in order to achieve that. What I encourage people to do is to sit down and make a plan, right? Just write things out. You can start by writing out just your fueling schedule. So take a look at your typical day, look at your work schedule, look at your exercise schedule, your social activities, and fit your nutrition into that plan. And make sure you're able to repeat that on a day-to-day basis to maintain that consistency. Right, so establish that eating schedule, so write that down. Then you want to write out just how you want your meals to be built, right? Always making sure there's some protein as part of those meals and snacks. Making sure you've got some good carb sources, whether it's grains, fruits, vegetables, those sort of things. And then including those healthy fats as well. Once you have that template in place, it becomes easy to start to fill out the foods that you want to consume. Right? So what you can do is you have your template, and then you can build out, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and so on. Right? Just using that template there. So what that looks like is, now you start to pick the foods that you want to consume. So if you go back to your template, you're going to have breakfast first thing in the morning. You want to include a protein source. Maybe that protein source is Greek yogurt. You want to pair that with some carbs, a little bit of granola, some blueberries, and then, as I mentioned earlier, add that healthy fat in the form of chopped almonds or something like that. And repeat that throughout the day so that you're hitting on all those key nutrients as you build out your meal plan. From there, you can even take it one step further and establish your portion sizes. Right? So your Greek yogurt, one palmful or 3/4 of a cup. Your granola is 1 cupped handful or about a 1/4 cup or 1/2 cup. And so on, and continue to do that throughout your day. Because then from there, all you need to do is build your grocery list. Right? So now you have all the foods that you need, you know the amounts that you need. You just create your grocery list. From there, go to the store, do your shopping, come home, and if you have time, start to prepare those meals. So maybe you're preparing bulk meals for the whole week, or if you're just preparing for the next day, right? That's going to help ensure that you're getting all the proper nutrition. You're getting that optimal nutrition that we're talking about every single day of the week. Essentially, the more you do that, the more it becomes a habit, right? So again, kind of following this routine here, establishing that eating schedule, being consistent day in and day out, hitting those key nutrients throughout your day, choosing the best quality foods, choosing those foods and consuming those foods in the right portions for you, making sure you're well hydrated throughout the day, and then just repeating that day in and day out. And again, you can accomplish that with a little bit of meal planning, grocery shopping, and meal preparation. So in summary, I've given you some pretty basic information, but for you to truly be able to implement it and to benefit from it, the best thing to do is to set a goal. For a lot of people, they want to lose weight. And those basics that I just talked about there, they can help you do that, right? So set a goal, whether it's weight loss, maybe it's improving athletic performance, maybe it's just improving markers of health. Have that goal in mind, and then create your plan. So take this information that we talked about it. You may need to modify a few things, but overall, those are the typical recommendations that you want to follow. That's going to be the plan. That's going to be the roadmap for you to reach that goal. Something that can be really beneficial for a lot of people is to recruit people who are supportive. So maybe it's family members or friends, people that have similar goals who you can follow and take this journey along with. It just makes it easier for you to reach your goal. It provides you with that accountability that you're looking for. So recruit a team, track your progress, whether that's just checking in with yourself every single day. If you've set, say, a hydration goal, at the end of the day, check off whether you accomplished that or not. The other way to track your progress is to meet with somebody like myself, a dietitian who can track that progress along with you. And then lastly, a lot of this can be challenging. Making changes to your routine, especially if it's a routine you followed for such a long time, can be difficult. So celebrate those victories. If your hydration has drastically improved, right, celebrate that. Post it on social media. Go out for dinner with your family and your friends and just celebrate that accomplishment. Right? Overall, if you can implement that routine that we just talked about, if you can track your progress, celebrate your victories, this is just going to go a long way towards moving you down a more ideal and healthier path towards that optimal health and optimal nutrition. So if you're looking for more information, you can reach us through our website, uclahealth.org/sportsperformance. If you're looking for a one-on-one consultation, you can reach out to us there as well. But overall, I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in, and we're happy to answer some questions. So again, if you have a question, you can reach out to us on Twitter using hashtag UCLAMDchat. So I think we've got some questions now. All right. Okay, so first question is, what do you think about diet trends like keto diet and intermittent fasting? So these are two of the more popular nutrition trends that we're seeing these days. Both are used typically in a weight loss, capacity. So people using keto diet or intermittent fasting as a way to lose weight. And there's actually a lot of research to back that up. The thing about keto diet, intermittent fasting, is that they can be challenging diets to maintain, and you really have to follow it as specified, right? So you can't just do like a half a keto diet some days and then other days just a regular diet. It's one of those things you really got to follow and stick to on a day-to-day basis. I also recommend, if people are looking to do something like keto diet or intermittent fasting, to reach out to somebody like myself who has a lot of experience and knowledge in those areas and can help you establish the proper guidelines that you need to follow in order to really maximize these diet protocols. All right. Any recommendation for eating during sports? At volleyball tournament, I have 1 to 2 hour breaks. What are items that are promoted to be good but really are not? So things like sports tournaments can be challenging because you're on the road. There's not usually a lot of good, healthy options in the area. So what I typically recommend people do is, one, take a look at the schedule ahead of time, understand where your breaks are and how long those breaks are, and then plan accordingly. I really encourage people to pack their own snacks and meals. Get yourself a little cooler that you can take with you to the tournament that's got healthy options, so you don't have to rely on buying something from the cafeteria or from the canteen or from a local fast food place. And something that's typically promoted as being good but really isn't, especially for youth sports, it's going to be things like sports drinks like Gatorade or Powerade. Those are really useful for people who train or perform at a really high level. But for your day-to-day youth athlete, those are just really high sugar, high calorie foods that you probably don't need at that point. You're better off suited with something like fruits and vegetables, just plain water, packing snacks like trail mix or protein bars. Even like a peanut butter and jam sandwich is just going to be a better option for you at tournaments and different sporting events. Let's see here. If my goal is to lose weight, how do I modify these recommendations you provided? So as I mentioned, those recommendations are pretty universal to most people. No matter what your goal is, whether you're trying to lose weight or perform at your best in your sport, establishing an eating schedule that's consistent will help with that. The only place you want to modify is probably with your portion sizes, right? So in the end, if your goal is to lose weight, you just need to be consuming fewer calories. Typically, the easiest place to reduce from is going to be your carbohydrate intake. So if you remember, for the male on a 2,000 calorie diet, it was about 13 servings. For a female, it was about 10. So even just cutting back in those areas, maybe dropping from 13 to 10 or 9 for the male and from 10 to 6 or 7 for the female, that's going to reduce that overall calorie intake, and that's what's going to help lose that weight. The other part of the equation is just exercising more, right? So we want to be able to burn more calories than we take in, and that comes in the form of exercise. All right, last one here. So is plant-based diet the best solution for health and fitness? I've seen many documentaries on Netflix supporting that. I'll just say that Netflix is in the business of making money. So a lot of those documentaries that you see on there, they can be very deceiving, and they can really skew a lot of what the research actually says. So plant-based eating is not necessarily healthier than just a regular diet that includes animal-based proteins. What it comes down to, like I mentioned, is are you getting all those key nutrients that we talked about? Really, when it comes down to health, it's making sure that we're not at risk of a nutrient deficiency, that our body is getting everything it needs in terms of carbs, proteins, healthy fats, and all the vitamins and minerals. That's going to be a better solution for good health than just going and starting a plant-based diet. There's nothing wrong with a plant-based diet. You can certainly be just as healthy that way, but it's not the best diet out there, right? So thank you for your questions, and I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.